Okay, this is a series of videos, uh, tutorial videos that will cover how to do Project 3 in Professor King's Typography 1 class. These videos will cover just some of the basics of drawing type in Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector art program. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Adobe Illustrator. We are going to create a new file. File New. We want our file, our file size to be US letter. You can change the units to picas. US letter, orientation, tall, or portrait size. So our width will be 51 picas, our height will be 66 picas. We want to change our color mode to RGB and hit OK. And you will get something that looks like this. Just FYI, I am using Illustrator Creative Cloud. However, I know in class we use Adobe CS6. Some of you may have older versions. There is nothing I'm doing in the software that is that are new features in Illustrator. So there's nothing I'm going to show you that you would be unable to do in CS6, CS5, even CS3, CS2. All of the techniques and features I'm showing you go back quite a ways. I'm going to first put in this checklist for myself. You do not need to do this. This is simply the checklist of the things I want to make sure that I cover as I go through this tutorial. Alright, so we have set up our new document. We want to set up layers. So this is the layers palette icon. If you click on it, you'll get this layers palette. If you can't find that icon, go to Windows, Layers. Any palette in Illustrator you can access via the Windows menu. Windows, Layers. Layers in Adobe Illustrator and in any digital design program are an incredibly powerful tool. Basically what a layer is, it's like a completely transparent sheet of tracing paper. If you imagined that you had tracing paper and you couldn't see the paper at all, it's completely clear, completely see-through. That's what a layer in a digital art program is like. We want excuse me. We want to use 2 layers in Project 3, Part 2. We're going to put a scan of our chosen marker drawing concept on a scan layer, and then we are going to trace over that digitally on an art layer. So the first thing I want you to do is, in your Layers palette, double-click on the name itself, the name of the layer. It will default to being Layer 1, and you can just type in Art. That will be our art layer that we're going to draw on. The next thing, you want to go down here within the Layers palette to create new layer, and it will come up as Layer 2. We'll call this Scan. Alright, so again, double-click on the name, type in the name you want. It's a very good idea when working with layers to make sure that you name things clearly and rationally. just so that you can figure out what's going on later. The layers default to having these layer indicator colors. These colors have nothing to do with the art that's on those layers. You know, you don't have to put blue art on a blue layer and red art on a red layer. Those are just layer indicator colors. When you click on an object, the way that it's indicated will use this color, so it's a quick visual cue to know which layer that piece of art, that object is on. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is you want to click on the scan layer and move it down below the art layer. So your scan layer will be on the bottom, your art layer will be on the top. Now you may notice right now my scan layer is highlighted. I want to switch to the art layer because the next thing we want to do is we want to put in guidelines. We want to put in guidelines on our art layer. So the first thing we need to do to get guidelines, we need to turn on our rulers. View, show rulers. You can also get this with Command R. View, show rulers. Now the way rulers work, you click on one of the rulers, you can pull a guideline out of it. Alright, and you can drag a guideline onto your artboard, which is the actual piece of paper. Now I just dragged these in randomly, but what I want, if we look at our brief, this is a schematic of what we want this project to look like. We're going to have one guideline that's in the center vertically, one that is in the center horizontally, and one more that is a quarter of the way down from the top vertically. So this guideline divides it in half left and right. This guideline divides it in half top and bottom. Excuse me there. And this guideline divides this top half in half again. So we'll have quarter of the height, half the height. We're going to put our letters that we draw at full size centered in the top half, so centered on these two guidelines. And then once you have completely drawn and proofed and you're very happy with your 4 letters, you're going to make a sample of them in action. You're going to reduce them in size down to 75%. You're going to copy them and make 5 words with them. You'll learn how to do that in video 3. For now, we're going to put in our midpoint guideline, quarter of the way guideline. Okay, so I just randomly dragged these over here, and when I try to select the guides, they are locked. Illustrator defaults to guides being locked. I want to unlock them and make sure they're actually in the right place. So I'm going to go to View, Guides, unlock the guides. And if I go up here, this gives us an X and a Y axis. Now, if we set our reference point to the center, you remember that our width was 51 picas, so we can go, well, that's 25 picas, 6 points. Set that as our x-axis, and it will move it there. The other thing we can do, if things are not where we want them to be, we can actually let Illustrator do the math for us. So I can go in here and do 51 divided, the backslash is divide by 2, hit return, it goes to 25p6. Alright, so if you're like me and you don't like doing the math in your head, you can let the computer do the math for you. And the same here. Our y-axis, remember our height is 66 points, so we can do 66 divided by 2, and that is 33. Beautiful. Now that is one way to start setting up your guides. We can do it once more. We can drag a guide down here. That looks like it's about half, but let's go up here, 33, which would be half. We want to do that by half again. 33 divided by 2, 16p6. Alright, so these are the guides we need, but I'm going to show you another way to do this. So I'm going to delete these guides. This is using the rectangle tool. We draw a rectangle from the top left corner of our artboard to the bottom right corner. So now we have a rectangle. If we go to our transform palette, you see it is, our rectangle is 51 picas wide by 66 picas tall. It is the exact size. And now we can, if you select this rectangle with your black arrow, which is the object selection tool, you can now go into your height and width and divide it by 2. Divided by 2, and now you get a box that is half the height and half the width. If we align that to the top left corner, then we can drag a guide over. It will snap to that box there. And we can do it again this way. Snap to that guide there. So now this guide is at 33 picas down from the top. This guide is at 25 and a half picas over from the left. So we've done the same thing, we've just done it with geometry. I'm going to do the same thing again with this rectangle. I'm going to go to my transform palette, and I'm going to divide the height in 2 again, and this gives me the height for this guide. I'm going to delete this square. So now I have a center guide vertically, a vertical center guide, a horizontal center guide, and a horizontal 1/4 guide. I'm going to go to my view guides and lock them. So now I can't accidentally move these guides. These are guidelines that show up on screen. These will not print, they will not show up in a PDF. They just show up on the screen to help guide me, to center things, to align things. Alright, so that is, let me see, we've done our layers, we've done our guides. So the next thing we want to do is to place our scan. So for this I want to go to my scan layer, click on the scan layer. You notice when you click on a layer in the layers palette, it highlights. It's highlighted in blue. So I'm clicking on the scan layer. That means I'm now going to work on the scan layer. I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to choose my my scans from this project. I have 3 pieces of scanned art. If I can just remember exactly when I scanned it last. Okay, here we go. I have 3 different designs from my last step. I'm actually going to go through all of these designs because I want to show you different techniques for different types of letters you may draw. You, of course, just have one favorite concept. You're just going to work with one. So you will only do this once. I'm going to do it several times just to show you. So we go to File, Place, and it gives you a little preview, and you click. And this piece of art is in my scan layer. Now I want to move it so that it is centered in the top half of my page, and that's where these guidelines come in handy. I want my 4 letters to appear centered on this cross of guidelines. Alright, once I've done that, I will lock my scan layer. Now, what this means is that I cannot affect that drawing anymore. I can only now work on the art layer. Alright, so that is how you place scan. That's done. And the last thing I want to tell you guys is my mantra whenever you are working digitally. It is to save early and save often. Alright? This is very important, so I'm going to just blow it up here. Look, behold, remember these 4 words. Save early, save often. Alright? This means whenever you are working on the computer, whenever you're doing any design work digitally, first of all, save your file as soon as you get started working on it. The reason you want to save right away is because most software now includes a sort of auto-save feature where it will occasionally automatically save your progress, so that if you have a power outage, if your computer suddenly crashes, if any number of things happen, it will have saved fairly recently automatically. Now, that process doesn't start until you save it the first time. So that's why you need to save early. Save often is because those autosave features are not always completely reliable. It's a very good idea to just get in the habit of whenever you are at a stopping point, whenever you complete a specific task in your file, anytime you lean back to look at it or print it or get up to stretch or get a cup of coffee or whatever, save it. Just get in the habit of constantly saving your work. There is nothing worse than working on a project for hours and hours and hours, and then something goes wrong with it and you realize you've never saved it. Because that's just hours of work that have just, it's as if they never happened. So, save early, save often. Let's save this now. So, for this project, I want you to use the naming scheme that you should use for all projects in my class. The name of the class, the project number, your last name and first initial. Alright, so type 1, P3 for project 3, your last name and first initial. And you can just save this as an Illustrator file. If you are working in a newer version of Illustrator than we are using at school, all right, this is a very good example because here on my own personal computer I have Illustrator CC, which stands for Creative Cloud, which is a newer version of the software than we have at City College of New York. City College of New York, we have Illustrator CS6. So what you want to do is save down a version. Software can always open files from older versions of itself, but it can rarely open files from newer versions of itself. So if I saved this as an Illustrator CC file, then I tried to open it on the school computers on a copy of CS6, it probably can't open it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this down. Save it down a version. Save it as an Illustrator CS6 file. Alright, so I do that here. Version, Illustrator CS6. Hit OK. And there we go. You'd see before this said untitled. Now it says my file name. And now anytime I've made any progress, I can just very easily do save or Command S. This is a very, very good habit to get in. Save early, save often. That concludes part 1, which is our setup.